What if the shine of Hollywood stars hid a poison that consumed them from within until leaving them alone in the darkness? Hollywood, that world where dreams rise like fireworks and nightmares fall like heavy shadows. Behind the splendor and glamour, there is a somber truth. Fame comes with a deadly price. Addictions have haunted the city of stars for decades, turning idols into tragedies. From Marilyn Monroe to Heath Ledger, the figures who lit up the screen were slowly devoured by their inner shadows. This is not just a list of the fallen. It's a chilling reminder of how the brightest lights cast the deepest shadows. Number 1, Elvis Presley, the king who died on his own throne. He was the king of rock and roll, a cultural hurricane, a man who changed music forever. But when Elvis Presley passed away, he wasn't on stage. He wasn't in a recording studio. He was slumped over a toilet, alone in the bathroom of Graceland. That's the raw truth they didn't want you to know. On August 16, 1977, the world stopped. Elvis was only 42 years old. The official cause, cardiac arrhythmia. But that was only part of the story. Behind the velvet curtains of Graceland, Elvis had become a prisoner of his own legend and the mountains of pills that kept him going. While fans saw a larger-than-life icon, his loved ones saw the man crumbling. Addicted, bloated, paranoid. His medicine cabinet wasn't a cabinet, it was a pharmacy. Barbiturates, Quaaludes, Demerol, Valium, codeine, dozens of pain pills, sleeping pills, digestion pills, energy pills, most prescribed in alarming quantities. The reality is that Elvis didn't die from a single overdose. He died from years of chemical abuse, covered up by doctors, managers, and even his family. They wanted to protect the king's image, even as it destroyed him from the inside. His body was wearing out. He suffered from chronic constipation so severe it put his life at risk. Diabetes, glaucoma. He couldn't perform without medicating himself to numbness, but those same medications were killing him day by day. When he collapsed in the bathroom that morning, it wasn't sudden. It was the final chapter of a long, tragic fall. A king seated on a porcelain throne, surrounded by secrets and silence. And yet, the myth endures. We remember the shiny suits, the screaming fans, the curled lip and swaying hips. But behind the legend was a man asking for help, and no one willing to stop the machine. Elvis didn't die just from heart failure. He died from being Elvis Presley. Number 2, Corey Monteith, the star who couldn't chase away the pain with a song. To the world, he was the golden boy of Glee, the charming quarterback with a goofy smile and a heart of gold. But behind that innocent and adorable Finn Hudson, there was a young man drowning in silence. Corey's struggle with addiction didn't start in Hollywood. It began in childhood. At 13, he was already drinking. At 16, trying hard drugs. At 19, he dropped out of school and entered rehab for the first time. But fame has a cruel way of putting a shiny filter over deep wounds. When Glee launched him to global fame, the world saw the star, not the battle. He tried to stay clean. He spoke openly about his past. He entered rehab again in 2013, supported by his girlfriend and co-star Lea Michele. It seemed like a turning point, but addiction doesn't play fair. Just weeks after finishing treatment, Corey flew to Vancouver, the city where his shadows always felt closer. On July 13, 2013, he was found lifeless in his hotel room. The autopsy revealed a toxic mix of heroin and alcohol. He was 31 years old. The tragedy hit like a punch to the stomach. Fans were stunned. The Glee cast shattered. Lea devastated. How could someone so loved, so talented, so good leave so suddenly? The cruel twist. Corey's body may have betrayed him. According to experts, after a period of sobriety, tolerance drops. When he used again, his body couldn't handle it, and that killed him. But more than that, it was the misunderstanding that destroyed him. Corey didn't look like an addict. He didn't fit the stereotype. He was successful, sweet, impeccably groomed, and that's the dangerous lie we tell ourselves, that addiction has a face. It doesn't. It hides behind smiles, inside hotel rooms, under polished red carpets. Corey Monteith didn't die from being reckless. He died because it hurt, and because no one teaches you to survive when your past haunts you, even under the spotlights. Number 3. John Belushi, the comic supernova that burned too intensely. He was wild, electric, unstoppable, until he wasn't. John Belushi wasn't just funny. He was a force, a walking explosion of energy, sweat, and chaos that left audiences breathless with laughter. From Saturday Night Live to the Blues Brothers, Belushi didn't just entertain. He devoured every stage he touched. But behind the madness, there was a man unraveling. At the height of his fame, cocaine flowed like champagne. According to Vanity Fair reports, during the Blues Brothers, cocaine was so common it was in the budget. By the time he was filming Neighbors, Belushi was spiraling so out of control that crew members had to physically hold him up off camera just to keep him standing. The parties never stopped. The nights never ended, and the darkness kept growing. In New York, during his last months, Belushi got lost in a blur of nighttime excesses, shady VIP rooms, and desperate highs. He was lost in a world that chewed up stars and spit them out. Just 5 days before his death, photographer Marcia Resnick met with him for what would be his last photo shoot. He seemed distant, tired, fading. Then came March 5th, 1982. Belushi was found lifeless in Bungalow 3 of the Chateau Marmont in West Hollywood, the same hotel where legends once stayed and now one had fallen. The cause, a lethal mix of heroin and cocaine. He was only 33 years old. In the aftermath, the world mourned. Friends broke. Fans were stunned. The laughter stopped. John Belushi's death wasn't just another Hollywood overdose. It was a wake-up call, a brutal reminder that fame, no matter how bright, never fills the inner void. He burned like a supernova, bright, fast, and gone too soon. Number 4. Chris Farley, the funny man who couldn't escape the darkness. Chris Farley lit up every room he entered, a human wrecking ball of laughs, energy, and fearless comedy. He was loud, wild, unforgettable. But what the world saw as hilarious chaos was often a cry for help. Farley didn't just play the out-of-control guy, he was one. Behind the scenes, he waged a brutal war against addiction, cocaine, heroin, alcohol, painkillers. Anything you could name, it chased him. He tried to fight. From Lorne Michaels to David Spade and Tom Arnold, everyone knew he was slipping. Studios even imposed sobriety contracts, monitoring every move on set. But as soon as the cameras stopped, so did his control. For a moment, it seemed like he would turn the corner. He had just finished Almost Heroes, was cast as the original voice of Shrek, and even talked about Christmas plans. A friend recalled him going to Mass, smiling more, feeling hopeful. Then came December 14th, 1997. Chris dove into the bars hard. A 4-day weekend of alcohol, cocaine, and who knows what else. On the final night, he hired a sex worker who, according to reports, admitted to robbing him and leaving him as he collapsed on the floor. His last words, "Don't leave me." On December 18th, his brother John found him lifeless in his Chicago apartment. He was 33 years old, the same age as his idol John Belushi, when he died from an overdose. Toxicology reports found cocaine, morphine, and marijuana in his system. His heart, already damaged by years of substance abuse, simply gave out. Chris Farley didn't die because he wanted to. He died because addiction lied to him. It told him he'd be fine, that he was alone, that the pain would pass. But it didn't. And now the world remembers a man who made us laugh while silently drowning in pain. Number 5. Judy Garland, the girl who could never go home. She sang "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," but she never found peace on this side of the rainbow. Judy Garland wasn't just a star. She was magic, America's sweetheart, the voice of a generation. But behind those bright eyes and radiant smile, there was a girl crushed under the weight of fame. At 13, Judy was already a workhorse at MGM. The studio executives didn't just control her career, they controlled her body, her food, her sleep, her mind. Want to stay thin? Take these pills. Need to keep going? Take those. To sleep? More pills. They called them mood pills. She called them survival. During the filming of The Wizard of Oz, at just 16, they forced her to work exhausting hours under brutal pressure, all while drugging her to keep her going. Her diet: chicken soup, black coffee, and amphetamines. Her breaks: barbiturates. Hollywood didn't raise her. It used her. She grew up, but the addiction grew with her. The pills didn't stop. Neither did the expectations. Judy became a mother, wife, divorced wife, and always a performer. She struggled with mental health, chronic exhaustion, and a persistent sense of never being enough. Her career, once bright, dimmed as her personal chaos spilled into the spotlight. Tardiness, breakdowns, hospital stays, but she kept singing. By the late 60s, she was barely staying afloat, performing in small clubs, underpaid, overmedicated, and completely exhausted. On June 22, 1969, just 12 days after her 47th birthday, Judy Garland was found lifeless in a London bathroom. Cause of death: barbiturate overdose. Officially, it was ruled an accident, but in truth, it was the slow and methodical murder of a vulnerable soul by a system that glamorized her while silently destroying her. Judy Garland's story isn't just tragic, it's outrageous. She was a girl thrown to the wolves before she had a chance to be a girl. A woman who gave the world her voice and died without anyone really hearing her cries. She never made it home. Number 6. River Phoenix, the boy who burned too bright, too fast. He had the face of an angel and the soul of a rebel. River Phoenix wasn't just Hollywood's next big talent. He was different. Vegan, activist, poet in the body of a rock star. He didn't play the tormented youth. He embodied it. And when he died, the world lost more than a rising star. It lost a generation's hope. October 31st, 1993. The Viper Room, West Hollywood. River, only 23 years old, stumbles out of the club. Minutes later, he collapses on the sidewalk, convulsing in front of his younger brother Joaquin and his girlfriend, actress Samantha Mathis. He's rushed to the hospital. He doesn't make it. The cause: acute multiple drug intoxication, heroin and cocaine, a fatal speedball. It didn't make sense. River wasn't that guy. He didn't party. He didn't go to rehab. He preached clean living and avoided Hollywood's toxicity. But somewhere in the shadows, something changed. In the days leading up to his death, a close friend, Red Hot Chili Peppers guitarist John Frusciante, later admitted they had been on a prolonged binge. Heroin, cocaine, no sleep, no food. A spiral so quick and silent that no one saw it coming until it was too late. His death shook Hollywood. River wasn't another tabloid tragedy. He was the future, an artist like Brando, Dean DiCaprio before DiCaprio. He turned down blockbusters, preferring indie films, and brought a raw emotional depth that made you believe every line he said. He had it all and didn't want the fake stuff. But like so many before, the pressure, the expectation, the weight of being different became too much. He died outside a club owned by Johnny Depp. He died in front of those who loved him most. He died because for one night he let the darkness in and it didn't let go. River Phoenix's death wasn't about drugs. It was about vulnerability, about a young man who didn't fit the machine but tried to survive it anyway. He didn't fade away. He shone, intense and brief, and left a light that still haunts the world he left too soon. Number 7. Heath Ledger, the Joker who could no longer laugh. He gave us one of the greatest performances in film history, and it destroyed him. Heath Ledger didn't just play the Joker, he became him, twisted, brilliant, unhinged, a role so dark, so absorbing, that it blurred the line between art and reality. But even before The Dark Knight, Heath was already battling demons the public didn't see. Fame came fast. 10 Things I Hate About You, A Knight's Tale, Brokeback Mountain. But with the praise came pressure, anxiety, insomnia, a mind that wouldn't shut off, a body that wouldn't rest. He once said he was lucky if he slept 2 hours a night. To cope, he turned to pills, painkillers, sleeping meds, anti-anxiety drugs, a cocktail to silence a storm that never stopped. In 2007, his relationship with Michelle Williams, mother of his daughter Matilda, ended. Friends say he was devastated, withdrawn, obsessed with his craft, but drifting further from reality. On January 22, 2008, Heath was found unconscious in his New York apartment by his housekeeper and a massage therapist. Paramedics arrived, but it was too late. Heath Ledger was 28 years old. The toxicology report revealed 6 prescription drugs in his system, including oxycodone, hydrocodone, diazepam, temazepam, and doxylamine, all legal, all lethal when combined. Official cause, accidental overdose. But was it really an accident, or the inevitable collapse of a man crushed by the weight of genius? His posthumous Oscar for The Dark Knight felt like a triumph and a funeral. We applauded the performance while ignoring the pain that created it. Heath didn't die chasing a high. He died trying to rest, escaping a mind too fast, too deep, too loud. His friends said he was sick, tired, haunted, and yet he gave everything until there was nothing left. We remember the makeup, the laugh, the Joker's chaos. But the real tragedy is that when the camera stopped, no one told Heath Ledger he could stop acting. Number 8. Marilyn Monroe, the goddess who died alone. She was the ultimate American icon. The blonde bombshell, the breathy voice, the smile that stopped time. But behind the red lips and white dress, Marilyn Monroe was crumbling in silence. She wasn't just a sex symbol, she was a woman in pain. Born as Norma Jean, abandoned by her father and raised in foster homes, Marilyn spent her life searching for love, stability, peace. Hollywood gave her fame but never security, and while the world saw a fantasy, Marilyn lived a nightmare. Her days filled with cameras and chaos, her nights, loneliness, insomnia, and pills. Barbiturates to sleep, amphetamines to wake up, alcohol to quiet the noise. A daily chemical balance always teetering. By the 60s, her image was unstoppable, but her personal life was crumbling. Failed marriages, public scrutiny, spiraling mental health. According to reports, she was fired from her last film for being unreliable, but no one asked why she couldn't function. She didn't want to die, she just wanted the pain to stop. On August 5, 1962, Marilyn was found lifeless in her Los Angeles home. She was 36 years old, but theories abounded. Accident, political, avoidable. What we know is this: Marilyn Monroe didn't overdose from weakness. She overdosed from the exhaustion of pretending, performing, and carrying the unbearable weight of being Marilyn Monroe. She once said, "Fame doesn't fulfill you. It warms you a bit, but that warmth is temporary." And when it faded, she was left in the cold. Her death joined a tragic club. Judy Garland, Margaret Sullivan, women broken by fame and dulled by drugs. Marilyn didn't die from glamour. She died from a world that loved her image, but never loved her. Number 9. Philip Seymour Hoffman, the genius who couldn't escape himself. He was one of the greatest actors of his generation, a master of subtlety, depth, and darkness. Philip Seymour Hoffman didn't just play broken men, he understood them. Because behind every Oscar, every standing ovation, there was a man silently battling a monster he couldn't overcome. From Capote to The Master, Hoffman dove into every role. He could make you laugh, hurt, recoil, and cry, often in the same scene. But off-camera, he waged a very different war: addiction. Hoffman struggled with substance abuse in his early 20s, eventually got clean, and stayed sober for over 20 years. Then came the relapse. In 2012, after decades of sobriety, he started drinking again. And then heroin. By 2014, it had overtaken him. Friends noticed the change. He seemed tired, lost, fading. On February 2nd, 2014, Philip was found lifeless in his New York apartment, with a syringe still in his arm. The scene was shocking. Bags of used and unused heroin, needles, prescription bottles, and a burned spoon. The toxicology report confirmed a lethal mix of heroin, cocaine, amphetamines, and benzodiazepines. He was 46 years old. To the public, the news was unthinkable. Not Hoffman, not the brilliant, thoughtful private artist, not the man who once said, "If I don't stop, I'm going to die." But addiction doesn't care how smart you are, how loved or talented. It doesn't care if you won an Oscar or if you're a father of 3. It just wants more. Hoffman knew the risks. He tried to seek help. He even had medication in his apartment to manage his addiction. But it wasn't enough. What killed Hoffman wasn't just the drugs. It was the silence, the shame, the idea that admitting a relapse meant failure. But relapse is part of recovery, and the more we ignore it, the more we lose the irreplaceables. Philip Seymour Hoffman gave everything to his art. But in the end, no one could play the role of saving him, not even himself. Number 10. Anna Nicole Smith, the bombshell who broke under the spotlights. She was blonde, bold, and built like a fantasy. Anna Nicole Smith didn't just turn heads, she stopped time. A Playboy playmate turned reality TV queen. She lived hard, laughed harder, and became a walking headline. But for her, fame was never glamorous. It was a ticking time bomb. In the 90s, she became a tabloid sensation, not just for her curves, but for her scandalous marriage to 89-year-old oil tycoon J. Howard Marshall. After his death, a bitter legal battle over his fortune turned her into a national joke. But behind the headlines, there was a woman unraveling in silence. The truth: Anna was already in a deep relationship with prescription pills. It started in her early 20s after cosmetic surgeries. According to friends, she quickly got hooked on painkillers like Vicodin, Lortab, and muscle relaxants. Add Valium and Xanax to the mix, and she was riding a chemical roller coaster trying to numb a pain the world didn't see. Her reality show could bring laughs, but insiders saw the cracks: slurred speech, erratic behavior, blackouts. By the early 2000s, Anna wasn't just addicted, she was dependent. The glamorous blonde bombshell had become a tragic figure, chasing comfort in bottles while pretending everything was fine. Then came the most devastating blow: the death of her 20-year-old son, Daniel, in 2006 from an overdose, just days after she gave birth to her daughter. Anna was never the same. Less than 5 months later, on February 8, 2007, she was found unresponsive in a Florida hotel room. Despite desperate attempts to revive her, she was declared dead that afternoon. Cause of death: accidental overdose of a lethal cocktail of sleeping pills, anti-anxiety meds, and painkillers. She was 39 years old. Anna Nicole Smith wasn't just a joke. She was a woman broken by fame, grief, and a system that chews up beauty and spits it out when the cameras stop. She wanted love. She wanted peace. But Hollywood only gave her noise. And in the end, she died as she lived, under the harsh light of public judgment, seeking silence. Number 11. Brad Renfro, Hollywood's lost boy. He was supposed to be the next big talent. At just 11 years old, Brad Renfro exploded on screen in The Client, holding his own alongside Tommy Lee Jones and Susan Sarandon. He wasn't trained, he wasn't polished, but he was real, raw, unfiltered. You didn't watch him, you felt him, but the industry that crowned him never protected him. Fame hit fast. Too fast. At 15, he was drinking, smoking, experimenting. At 18, he was arrested. Heroin crept into his veins like a slow whisper he couldn't silence. The headlines followed: rehab, relapses, misdemeanors, probation. Hollywood forgot him, but the pain didn't. Friends said he wanted to get clean. He still auditioned, still believed he had a comeback in him. But on January 15, 2008, Brad was found lifeless in his Los Angeles apartment. He was only 25 years old. The cause: fatal overdose of heroin and morphine. He died 4 years younger than the character he played in The Client. There was no media frenzy, no massive tributes, just a quiet end for a boy who once lit up the screen. Brad Renfro's story isn't glamorous, it isn't cinematic, it's tragic and all too common. Number 12. Don Simpson, the producer who partied himself to death. He wasn't just a Hollywood power, he was the party. Don Simpson was the brains behind Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop, the explosive movies that defined the 80s and 90s. He made stars, ruled studios, and lived like a rock star in a producer's suit. But behind the hits, there was a man addicted to more. More success, more pleasures, more drugs, more pills. He didn't hide it, he flaunted it. Luxury orgies, cocaine excesses, prescription pills alphabetized in his closet. Yes, you read that right. He had doctors on speed dial and enough medication to stock a pharmacy. On January 19, 1996, Don was found lifeless on the bathroom floor of his Bel Air mansion. He was 52 years old. The autopsy revealed 21 different drugs in his system, including antidepressants, stimulants, and sedatives. Cause of death? Heart failure, triggered by years of substance abuse. Don Simpson didn't overdose in secret. He did it loud, fast, and in plain sight of an industry that called him a genius until it was time to bury him. He built an empire and then let it collapse on him. Number 13, Michael K. Williams, the soul that didn't go out, the man who didn't fade. He was a presence. Every scene he entered crackled with intensity. Omar Little in The Wire, Chalky White in Boardwalk Empire. Michael K. Williams didn't just act. He channeled truth in a world desperate for the real, but behind those piercing eyes, there was a man carrying prisons, literal and emotional. Williams spoke openly about his battle with addiction. Even at the height of his fame, the scars from the streets clung tight. He sought relief and paid the price. On September 6, 2021, Williams was found lifeless in his Brooklyn apartment. His journey ended not in a burst of action, but in a whisper of tragedy. The medical examiner confirmed a cocktail of substances: heroin, cocaine, fentanyl, and parafluorofentanyl, a lethal symphony that silenced a powerful voice forever. He was 54 years old. It wasn't a violent fall from grace. It was quiet, personal, hidden behind the acclaim, fan devotion, and the pulsing energy of The Wire, Lovecraft Country, and so much more. They gave him roles that bled art, but he carried real grief in private. In the aftermath, 4 men were charged with manslaughter for supplying that fatal mix. But no courtroom drama could undo the loss. The cries weren't in protests, but in broken hearts. Communities mourning one of their own, a performer who turned pain into presence. Michael didn't leave us because he wanted to. He left because his world, unseen, unspoken, became too much. Addiction doesn't choose victims. It chooses those who carry the weight of survival, of expectations, of ghosts. He wasn't just a character, he was a truth teller, a man who breathed life into stories that needed to be told. His absence is raw, yet every time we see him, we remember he didn't go out. He burned with soul, with honesty, with a brutality that shattered the glass and left the shards behind. And while these stories leave us with a lump in our throats, think about this. How many more lights will go out before Hollywood learns to protect its own? Fame can lift you up, but without care it drags you into the abyss. But amid the pain, there are lessons, the courage to speak, the strength to seek help, the hope that a relapse isn't the end. Thanks for joining me on this reflective journey through the shadows of the stars. If these stories touched you, give it a like. Subscribe for more tales that honor the human legacy behind the shine, and turn on the bell. Remember the most impactful moment, how Elvis, the eternal king, teaches us that even the greatest need a lifeline. Which one moved you the most? Tell me in the comments. Until next time, take care.